Hi, I'm April Eberhardt, editor of The Black Lens. Before we begin our discussion with Charity Resian, I wanted to share a poem that I wrote for her. Charity is one of the bravest people I've ever met and a very special person. The Price of the Fight was written to reflect the extreme courage and tenacity that she had to do what she's done. So please enjoy this poem before we begin. The Price of the Fight. Dark depths, uncertainty, fear, no sign of light. Self-doubt, the sting of rejection, an unwanted birthright. New knowledge challenging old ways. A cultural aberration leads to isolation and malaise. Inside resides a dying spark of hope. Then a second wind emerges at the end of the rope. That wind grows the spark. New confidence meets purpose, and faith joins the fight. A warrior for change becomes the holder of light. A bridge to transformation, education now the foundation, and girls finding their voice. They now understand the power of choice. The price of the fight, not paid in vain. Liberation and power, now theirs to obtain. Thank you. Now let's begin our discussion with Charity Resian. At this time, I would like to bring to the stage for a post-documentary discussion Charity Resian, Shane Desgrosellier, and Dee Scott. First, I just want to thank Charity. It wasn't easy for her just to sit and watch her own story and the sacrifice that she made to get to this moment. Thank you. I'm going to start out with some questions. I think we know, just by watching, challenges that came with the advocacy when pushing to transform societal norms. The whole world felt like it was against you, it seems.
Yes. I think the biggest challenge that I have or I've encountered is reliving my story over and over and over again. That is extremely difficult for me, but I always go back to the why. Why am I sharing my story to the world? Why did I decide to not let it go and probably be an engineer or work in IT? Sometimes I will want to do that because it's not easy holding this mic and reliving my story that mirrors stories of so many little girls from my community. But I think that in itself became stronger. I had to hold this mic. I had to find courage and strength over and over again to speak for them. Because if I don't, not many will go through my path, and not many will have the courage that I did, or a mother like my mother. Many will never go to school and will end being married at a very young age, and so that became stronger.
The power of forgiveness. How important has that been for you to get through this journey?
It's everything. It began from when I forgave my father. When he said that he loved me, and why he acted the way he did was because he feared what the community will think of him. I cannot describe the compassion that I felt in my heart. The hatred that I felt just disappeared from my father. And I came to realize that it wasn't only my story, but it was his story too. It was my mother's story. It was the whole community story. So I forgave my father. I just felt that he was the first person that I should forgive to heal my life. But it has taken me many years, and I crossed continent. I literally moved to Sweden alone to heal my life. It has taken me 7 years to be here right now and to find purpose in my story. Yeah. And to forgive my community. Yeah.
Thank you. Shane, can you elaborate on the importance of this awareness, this global awareness?
This is the first time I've seen this documentary, so thank you. I met Charity just a few weeks ago through Dee, so thank you, Dee. And Charity was the bravest individual I've ever met. The courage was extraordinary. So to be able to share this story with you first, this is Charity's first event. So this is...
Thank you.
So you're the first. And so what we're going to ask of you is to help share this story with the world. And how do you do that? And that's through social media, really. Friends, family. You might know somebody who has influence. I'm hopeful somebody in here may know Joe Rogan or know somebody. You laugh, but I'm not, this isn't a laughing matter. This is something that is extraordinary. Maybe it's an executive at ABC, NBC, somewhere. But this is a story of a very remarkable young woman. And that documentary was very powerful. But if you have a moment to speak with Charity and to truly hear her story, that was part of it. I learned through speaking with her when she had to flee. She was barefoot with her mother, 4 miles to the road with no protection. There's lions. You had to avoid lions. Who says that in their life? Not us. The remarkable courage. So to say that the importance of this message, I think, is highly important. I have a young daughter, 17 years old. So I'm impassioned because of what you've gone through. And the one thing that I wanted to remind you, as well as this audience, is that this very brave young woman, having to stand up to her community in a way that she did, run away, all of the pain and anxiety, suicidal. I mean, you were at the lowest, but she's here today. It brought her here today for us. And so that is remarkable.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Dee, thank you. Can you talk about transcending race, ethnicity, and cultural difference to bring collective healing? What does that mean? She's in a room full of people here in the Pacific Northwest, coming all the way from Kenya with such a powerful story. And Charity, in your own words, this wasn't an African issue anymore from Africa. It was a global issue. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can. When I first met Charity, it was rather random. I went to Kenya a couple of years ago and met surprisingly young men who talked about FGM, who had daughters who didn't want that for their daughters. So that was the first time that I'd really heard about it in depth. So these men were talking about that to me, and I asked them what their biggest challenges were. And one of the boys that I was walking with told me that water was the biggest challenge. And he pointed to a mountain that was about as far away from here as Mount Spokane. And he said, our women walk for water every day up to 20 miles sometimes just to get the water. And then you saw the river. And when we're blessed with the rivers and the waters that we have around here, it's just hard to fathom, because not only the women are walking for water, but the animals are looking for water as well. So when I came back to Spokane, I was writing one day, and I just thought, I have to do something. I have to do something about this, because it isn't just an African problem, but it is. It's women supporting women, and culturally, it's just something that needs to be addressed. So I had asked David how much the water weighs, and he told me, or not how much it weighed, but how much water they get. And they fill a jerry can full of water, and you saw the women carrying that on their heads, and they will walk 10 miles one way sometimes after they get that water and carry it back to their village. And it's up to the women and the girls to get the water. So when these girls have to go, they could carry a liter or two of water. That they take the girls out of school. They don't get educated, and everybody gets the water, because that's the role that the girls play and the women play. Yeah. That's hard to comprehend too, as a woman in today's society. Yeah. When I got back, I told you I had to do something, and so I contacted David, the young man who told me about this first, the water problem and the FGM, and told him that we needed to do something. And we brainstormed, and he said he had a mud house, made of cow dung and mud, and he said, I will put a tin roof on my house, and then we'll get a gutter, and then if we get a water tank, when the rain falls, it will fill that water tank, and then we won't have to walk for water. So I sent him money, and we did that. And then the elders in his village loved what he did and gave him their blessing to have the rest of the community do that. So once everyone had their water tanks, then I decided I was going to have a fundraiser. And so I turned 70 last year and thought I would tie the fundraiser in with my birthday. So I was going to maybe raise $7,000, and I was going to maybe get 7 tanks in 2 villages. And I decided that we would have walks in the month of April, because here it's April showers, bring May flowers, and I thought, well, that's when the rains fall, April and November. So I reached out to my friends and my family and said, let's do walks and pledge so much per mile for these walks. And all my friends, I have friends all over the world, and they could walk too. And so it wasn't just a local walk. You could just pledge anywhere in the world, anytime in the month of April, and take a walk. So my goal, like I said, was to raise $7,000. Well, I ended up raising $18,500, and I was able to purchase 37 water tanks the first year. So, so I continued this fundraiser all through this year too, and was able to, or all through the rest of last year, and was at the end of the year able to put in 45 water tanks, and we totaled $22,500. So I did it again this year, and because I had friends asking me, are we going to do it? Are we going to do the walk? And so I said, sure, why not? And threw it together, and as of last week, I had raised $57,500. Well, it's all my friends and my family, and I have 115 water tanks installed right now in 3 Maasai villages. So the rain falls in April and November typically. So the idea behind the water tanks is it would rain and fill the tanks in April, and the women would not have to go walk for water and take the little girls with them. And then they would just use it for cooking and for drinking. And then the rain would fall again in November and refill those tanks, and then they would not have to do that again. So just to do the math, this is pretty cool. If you are okay with me telling this is pretty neat. I had to write this down. Each tank holds 2,500 gallons of water. So I timed that by 115 tanks. So that's 287,500 gallons of water that we've captured this year. Each gallon of water weighs 8.34 pounds, times the 287,500 gallons. So that makes 2,397,750 pounds of water that the women and the girls don't have to carry this year. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Thank you. Which brings me to the next question. You're talking social change.
Yeah.
In any society, when you're talking breaking norms and cultures and traditions or even mindset, revolution takes time.
It does.
And you said there were men who didn't want to see this for their daughters. Mm-hmm. Charity Resian, do you see a shift? Do you feel a shift slowly happening?
Yes, I'll say that I was the first girl in my village to say no to FGM. And since then, there have been a great shift, and I'll start from within my family. My little sister did not go through FGM, and she didn't have to fight the way I did. Mm. And I have so many other little cousins of mine who have not gone through FGM. And not only from my family, but so many other little girls have come on board with the courage to run away like I did. They all know that it's a fight, because that's the reality of it. It's a fight. But now, the most interesting bit of it is that some even run to our home and find cover from my father. Mm-hmm. Isn't that wonderful? That is a great social change that it's possible within our community. One thing I'll tell you, I think you'll see pictures of the young girls that we are here for today, because today is an educational fun campaign. I'm almost speaking my mother tongue. But it is about them. You see those little girls? That was me. I see myself in one of these little girls. And when I say that I found purpose, and I said I did not understand how I could pass through what I went through as a young girl. I honestly did not understand how a 16-year-old can go through what I did. And I said I'll tell the world my story, and I'm here today. I'm sharing my story because I wanted people to know about it. I wanted to get an understanding why it did happen to me, okay? But also, after finding healing, I found purpose. And I founded Resian's Dream. Resian is my second name, my first name, I'll say that. The other one is English name. My first name is Resian. And so I founded this non-profit, community-based organization to leverage education to empower girls and to end harmful cultural practices, including female genital mutilation, child marriages, while transforming communities in rural Kenya. The reality is, those young girls that you saw on the picture, they have very many barriers to education and to personal choice, to have a voice, and to have rights on what happens over their own body. And today, if we do not do something about it, their paths might even be worse than mine. You hold the key to ensure that they have a different future. You hold the key to giving them a voice, to make them feel seen and heard, and to give them a chance, a glimpse of hope for living a dignified life. And that's why we are here today. We want to raise funds because we want to take them to better schools. from where I come from, and I am one of them, the only way out is through education. It's through education. If I didn't go to school, I couldn't be seated here today. That's the reality. Not only fighting FGM, but I could be married off, maybe having, I don't know, have a number of babies. But the thing is, you can change that for them. You can come on board, and you can help us support them together. That will give them a voice, that will give them a glimpse of hope for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. What you'll do today is you're sowing a seed in that community, and it is going to spread over. In any small way, you'll be a very big part of who these ladies, these little girls will be. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'd like to talk a little bit about mental health through all of this.
Yes.
Just seeing the impact it still has on you right now. Your sacrifice opened doors for others, but it was a sacrifice. Can you talk about, in your village, how is mental health regarded? Is it even something that's considered important? Is it something that is a conversation? You were depressed, you were locking yourself in your room. Your mother knew, but can you talk about that as a part of this conversation also?
Yeah, I will, and it's very important that I speak about that. In my community, if I'll say about mental health, I'll say that there's no awareness around it. We don't understand what it is. I didn't even understand myself why I was feeling the way I was. I just had these intense feelings about everything. Yeah, it took me to that end of the darkest part. I always say, not a film like this or a book or whatever I can use to tell my story can get to the depth of how it did affect me. Nothing. I didn't understand about mental health until I moved to Sweden. That's when I didn't understand so many things. But I talked to a therapist. That's when I got to open and understand how all this really affected my life, and that I can get help. And it changed my life. It really did. Took many years, but did change my life. So I remember one day we were talking with my mom, and I can notice, and I told her, Mom, I think you need a therapist. My mom was like, what? Like, what? Okay. And she told me not to tell anybody about it, and I'm sharing here. I don't know what she'll say. But I told her, you really need a therapist, and I'll pay for you. I want you to go see a therapist, because you have not dealt with what we've been through. And yeah, I'll say my mom saw a therapist. Very proud of her.
Yes.
And my mom told me, I can't even describe what that did to me. I cannot even describe, I could see the light in her eyes. I could see, because my mom, she's a woman leader. I don't know if it's the right English word, but she's a leader. And she's so strong. And right now, as we speak, she's a reverend. I'm so proud of her. She raised above all that, and she took positions that were not meant for her, for a woman in my community. I'll say that. And she has broken all those barriers to an extent where she's right now empowering other women in my community to actually dream to be more for themselves and for their community. Isn't that impactful? And my father is right there supporting her. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, it makes me very proud. So to go back to the mental health, I honestly think I do have a big dream. And the dream is to build a rescue center for the girls like little Resian, like myself, so they know that they will always have a safe space to go to. And also, we will have a leadership center. And in this leadership center, we will have so many topics discussed, and our community will be part and parcel of it. And one of them will be mental health. We will empower them to understand what mental health is and how it affects their lives. And that we together can actually deal with us, whatever we're passing through as a community. And so, yeah, we have a long way to go, but there's hope.
Yes. Your mother, she believed in you, and even when her mother came, she still did not stop you per se. I would say she believed in you, that glimmer of hope. You've become her strength, and now you've empowered her. Education is the way out.
It really is.
How many girls actually do get to go to school?
Yeah, in my community, not very many girls have the privilege to go to school. And because we are a very cultural community, and we have so many barriers to education. And one of them, of course, is female genital mutilation and early child marriages. And so you find families not giving the priority for girls to go to school. They'll send boys to school. But for a girl, a man can just show up with a few little shillings and say, I want to marry her. And they'll give that little girl to that man as a second, fourth wife. And she's 13. That is the reality of those little girls you saw there. That's why we have to take them to better schools. And when I say better, I mean boarding schools, because boarding schools will also be will give them some sense of safety as we look towards the bigger dream of building a rescue center and an educational facility for them, so they are empowered enough to be whoever they choose to be. Education is the only way out in my community. I will repeat that. It is the only way out. And I think it gives us a chance to learn, to understand the world, to come out of this bubble. I was telling Shen that before I went to school, I thought we were the only one in the world. I swear I did. I never thought there were other people. I thought it was only my village. Really, I did. I didn't know anything outside of that. But when I went to school, I was like, oh my God, there are other people. And so I became very interested with other communities in my class, and I became so curious of the world. And that is what led me to be where I am today. So education is critical, and that's what the nonprofit will be about, leveraging education to empower girls.
Yes, thank you. Shane, organizing is one of the essential components to doing anything that's going to transform. Can you share how to build critical mass, what your ideas are around that, how to build bridges, tonight being an example?
Yeah, great question. I want to give a little bit of background of why I'm up here. This is not something that I do. I met Charity 2 weeks ago. I've never heard of FGM before. I'm probably a lot like many of you the first time you've ever heard of it. Maybe I'm the only one in the room. But I'm here because I helped co-found a nonprofit here locally in Spokane. It's a global nonprofit, and the idea was to give the power of $5, at least allow folks to feel that $5, we call a seed, to make an impact. And so we want to use crowdsource funding, meaning as many people as possible, to donate a single seed, $5. And if we have 1,000 people tonight share $5 with Charity to put 12 young girls already identified into boarding school, that removes them from the family expectation of female genital mutilation. It also prevents them from being married off or from hauling water. So it is a lifesaver for them in so many ways. And so we developed, my co-founder and I, Dr. Ross Simons, founded a nonprofit called Sow a Seed. We're a 501c3. Your $5 that you donate, we don't take a penny from it. We self-fund this nonprofit. This is something that we do because we're passionate about, our families are supportive of. We fundraise separately for the organization. So you know that every penny that you donate of your $5, $10, $100 goes directly to charity and these young girls getting education. So to have an opportunity to, when I said share this with your friends and family through social media, Charity's her mission here is on our website right now, sowaseed.org. We have QR codes throughout the auditorium you can scan and donate tonight. I would encourage you to go to sowaseed.org and then use that link to ask your friends and family. You think about what Charity has overcome, and we're simply asking for you to share with your friends and family. It doesn't take a lot of courage to do that. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to do what Charity has done. And so I feel like that's something that's what Ross and I and our organization, that's what we need to do for her. One thing I do want to share about Charity, because I'm super proud of her, is that she didn't just go to school in Sweden. She has her bachelor's degree. Oh, wait, and a master's.
Yes, I
Oh, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So she has truly climbed the mountain. And what her dream and hope and what she came to us for was that if I can do this and inspire other young 9-year-olds to say, this is what you can do because I did it. I broke the barriers. She's a barrier breaker. She shattered the glass ceiling, and she wants to encourage and give that same opportunity to the younger girls in her community. And so we have a backpack with 25, 30 pounds of water over here, and I would encourage each of you to put it on and to feel what it, I can't tell you, like, let's try on female the mutilation part, right? But I can encourage you to try to carry the water at least around the auditorium, yet alone 5 miles when you're 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So we are here tonight in hopes that we can raise $25,000, one seed at a time. And what you get from us, what makes us different, you will get a video of these young girls that go into boarding school the very first day. So you will see how your seed was planted, how it was nurtured, and then how it was harvested. And the hope that these young girls now have, you have a direct part of their future and in their life. And it is generational, let's be clear. Yes. What they do and what Charity is doing, and you keep doing this over and over, it becomes a generational impact. And so you will get a video back of these young girls attending their first day of school at boarding school, and you'll see their eyes, much like Charity's, with hope. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm up here, and that's why Dr. Ross is in the audience. My wife is here as well, and we encourage you to ask any questions of us, what our organization is about. I've got business cards out there if you need to get in touch with us. We'd also encourage you, if you know anybody who might want to partner with Charity, that would be extraordinary. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say I met Charity in July. I am the editor for the Black Lens, and I had just taken over. And there was a conference in Spokane Valley. The Maasai people were having a celebration, and I thought she was coming in to report on that as a community reporter. And as soon as she shared, it was almost like, oh my goodness, to hear her story and the courage. And immediately I was like, we need you. Just the passion and the spirit of activism and the courage and the faith. You mentioned faith in your documentary. You definitely fought against all odds. And it was not in vain. It was not in vain.
Thank
I
you.
just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Dr. Ross is in the audience. Would he like to kick off our audience questions at this time?
Hi, just show me where you are, and I'll get this over to you. Here we go. Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you.
So just with D, I think just bringing up the fact that making the connection, what you've done with the water and freeing those girls up to actually be able to go to school. And so I think that just ties in there. And with how do the people in the audience know that the money is going to somewhere specifically useful and that you have contacts with, as opposed to a lot of people that donate, money? It just feels like it's going into a huge pot that they never really see the fruits of. So how does that work? Do you have connections over there in Africa?
I do. Actually, one of the young men that I was talking to over there, he has the 3 daughters, and he's the first one who told me about all this. And when I got back, we connected. And all those little girls you see up there, the first year we raised enough money to get 10 little girls in school. That was last year. And then we were able to add 5 more this year. And they are going to a school where they go every day and then they come home. The cost is very transparent of everything that I've done. The water tanks, down to the nuts and bolts, I get itemized statement of where the money went. I have contacts with their young men who want more for their daughters and for their kids. They don't want their daughters. Some of them are in arranged marriages. Some have married for love, and it's a big difference. So I have had every dime of money that I have raised goes directly to these, to the women for the water tanks, to the women for, we're selling jewelry tonight that the women have made. Some had never held money before. And so we're empowering them so that they can buy supplies and buy uniforms for their daughters and buy food for their families, and make change. So yes, 100% of the money that I donate goes to the project that I raised the money for. And we have these little girls in school, there's 15 little girls in school. There are 6 of them who are around 9 years old, and it's getting very critical that they go to a boarding school because they go home every night and they're subjected to all this. And so that's huge. If we could get them into a boarding school this next year, then they would become ultimately mentors for the young girls who are coming up, and we could fill their spots too. But Sow a Seed, I had a very large contribution, and Sow a Seed was so awesome because they ran that through their business, and 100% of that money went to buy 30 more water tanks.
Oh, sorry. Mine is not a question, but it's to emphasize on my sister. I came here through a friend, so I actually have not met Charity, but my name is Caroline, and I'm from Kenya. And I just want to emphasize that whatever she's actually saying is like she has relived some of our stories that we never said. So I'm actually older than her by far old gaze, but I didn't have the courage to actually do whatever she's doing. So the children going to school is because when you remain home as a girl, the duties at home for you to go and fetch the water and make sure when the cows and the little, like the goats, they don't go out with the men, so you have to fetch water for them, and then the cleaning for your brothers and all that. So girls are not supposed to go to school. So only a few families that where she comes from, when your parents have actually broken that chain, that you can go to school. That's why you'll find us going to school very early. And I'm very happy going to boarding school when you're very young. I was in boarding school at class standard 1, which is, I don't know how you call it, grade 1, because my parents would afford that, so that then I'm not subjected to whatever he's going through. So I'm actually very, very happy for her. I've never met her. And you asked about the mental health. I've been telling my friend, because she's the one who brought me here, not knowing that I'm coming to a Kenyan film. But but I told her most of the time that I'm here because of mental health. When you have a mental problem at home, we take you to church to be prayed for because you're either cursed or you have demons or something. So when I arrived here, I found out that mental health is a sickness, and people can actually say, you know, I'm Caroline and I'm passing through this. So I'm able to relate to you, and I'm able to understand where you're coming from. So yes, mental health is something that she really needs and support, and I hope once I finish my program, Charity, I'll be on your case so that we can team up with that. Thank you very much for standing up for us.
Thank you.
Yes, right here. Hello. I think what you're doing is amazing, and the story and the courage that it's taken to leave home, come to the United States, and tell your story. I'm so grateful for that. One of the questions that I have is, in taking these little girls and putting them into school and kind of broadening their perspective, what are the steps that you're also taking to ensure that the richness of your culture is preserved, and that these children, while they're being revolutionary and they're doing all of these amazing things, that they're still holding true to the culture that I know that you value so much, and you look amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much. The cultural aspect of it, our culture is very, very rich. The Maasai culture is known worldwide because of how rich it is. And we have many things that are so great in our culture, and that we emphasize that it should be retained. And I'm thinking, yeah, why not have a cultural center to ensure that the younger generations will not be passed by our culture. You know, to hold that cultural heritage within our community. It's beautiful. And I think we do have, actually annually, we have a cultural event in Kenya, annually, for the Maasai people. It's amazing. And today we have an artist who is a cultural artist that will end this, you know, will end this conversation, this whole event. That's how we plan to ensure that the rich culture is still within us. And wherever we go, and it's just part of personal development, it's so important that we encourage the young people to hold on their identity of who they really are. It's so much noisy out here in the world. It really is. And I remember last month we were in a sister circle, and I was shocked of the experiences that the young little girls, black girls, are having in school. And I was like, wow, I will share what I went through. I was in the Netherlands doing my exchange program, and I didn't have a place to live. And I was looking for a room to live, a student housing to live. And someone just told me straight on the face, it's because you're black. Oh my God, it shook me. That was when I started realizing that, oh my God, I'm black. That never really sank in until that conversation. And it took me to an identity crisis that I worked to the depth of it, to silence every other noise out there and to align with who I really am and my identity as Resian. So I think with the cultural aspect of it, it goes again with empowering these young girls and our communities to hold on who they really are. Yeah, that you pick what is good, just leave the rest. That's how I think.
Take what is good and leave the rest. That's awesome. Question here?
I was just wondering, we have so many schools in Spokane, nursing schools, engineering, everything. And I wonder about extending, once they go through the school system in Kenya, what we could do to offer them housing and scholarships if we could get a community of educators together to figure out ways to get them further education that they could then take back to Kenya.
I'll answer this. I appreciate the very large vision, and I think that's really where Charity and I have really come together, as well as Dee. Dee is not afraid to set out a large vision and just 1 foot in front of the other. Charity, literally 1 foot in front of the other. And for Sow a Seed, it is about setting something really large and not be afraid to ask for something large, but ask for the community to come around, right? And so what you're saying, I think, is really extraordinary, and we would love to find a way to make that happen in some tangible way. And so if you have ideas, we're open to it. Tonight, we're asking for $25,000 just to start. It's a seed, right? And I'm super hopeful, and I'm also confident that we're going to raise way more than $25,000. And what we do with that is something that Charity will decide. This isn't Sow a Seed's project. We're just a conduit. So this is Charity's vision. At some point, she would love to have a community center, a cultural center with mental health therapy and et cetera. But having those young girls come to Spokane to learn and then go back, that is the cycle that Charity has, and that's really what her vision is as well. So I'll let you speak to it if I wasn't clear.
You are very clear, and I think the cultural exchange also is a very big part of empowering our communities, because not only will they get empowered from Kenya, but even from the US. They'll get to be out of their bubble, to really see what happens in the other side of the world. What happens to 16-year-olds? You know, when I was fighting that battle, what are 16-year-olds doing here? You know, I really think it sets them up for some form of compassion and interest in social issues, because that's critical. It's critical that they grow up wanting or desiring to be world leaders and actually playing a part in improving their communities. Maybe it starts from Africa. You can see, I'm not saying that we are only from, no, not, okay, that I have to rephrase because we are changing the narrative. We really are. And so what I mean to say is we can learn from each other, and it can be a very great program. And yeah, of course, the school district will be part of it.
There are no questions. April, would you like to thank our panel?
Thank you so much for coming and sharing and for supporting Resian. We are going to end our program with culture. Speaking of culture, again, I just want to emphasize, it wasn't in vain.
Thank you.
It wasn't in vain.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to welcome our next phase of this program, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Before we, thank you. Before we do, I just want to say thank you, Charity, for being the most courageous human being I've ever met. And I'm just going to give you a standing ovation and maybe a hug, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.